Hey, it's me, the guy, streaming Conure once again. Before we get into the video, I just wanted to let you guys know that we are roughly 150 subs away from 1,000. When we get there, I'll be doing a prepared Q&A video, answering literally whatever questions you want me to. Follow my Twitter at ConyreCC for updates. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 3, a special foreign policy edition of the Conure Report, where I'll be interviewing none other than resident overachiever Dylan Burns. At Dylan Burns 1776 on Twitter, I first found out about Dylan from a conversation he had on Vosh's stream, and once again from a shout out he got on the Michael Brooks show. Here's the clip.
And do you have one of the Gravel kids helping you out? Is that true?
Yeah, I actually do. His name is Dylan Burns. He's amazing. Shout out to Dylan.
Shout out to Dylan Burns.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love how all of these things intersect.
I love him. He's actually our foreign policy advisor.
Oh, well, Lula Livre, Dylan.
Yeah.
Truly some of the highest praise one can receive. Dylan Burns is former director of the Maryland Mike Gravel campaign, foreign policy advisor for Mckayla Wilkes' primary challenge to Steny Hoyer in Maryland's 5th Congressional District, and he joins me here on the Conure Report today. Dylan, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing Daisy. Almost got hit by a car, but besides that, everything's wonderful.
Yeah, would you like to tell the chat about your experiences on the streets today?
Well, in this oppressive world where cars are zim-zabbing, zoom in on these zoomers, we get hit every day, and I was almost a victim. As I was walking home, I hit the light that basically says, to go, the little white walkie man.
Yeah.
And as it went on, somebody decided that they really needed to look at a text from grandma and almost beamed me off the head of the car. So that was wonderful.
Would not have been the best thing, I don't think. But I mean, you're here now. It delayed us a little bit, but apparently you also had a chat with some very interesting, a very interesting person. Is that correct?
Yes, our campaign had a discussion with Mike Gravel. I can't really discuss much of it. It has to do with some inter stuff. We're going to let a certain news organization break some news around that, so I can't really get too in depth about that.
No problem. Pretty exciting, though, I think.
I would say it's exciting.
All right, so before we really get into the meat of today's program, everybody, I just wanted to give the viewers a bit of an insight into who you are, how you got to where you are now. Basically, we're trying to find out who is Dylan Burns. So very briefly, how would you describe your politics?
I would say I'm a huge, I would say I'm a Delaneyist. I believe in Delaney's philosophy, bringing this country forward. He is the only man who's ready to really bring the hard questions about letting this poor people starve on the street, but not for real. A lot of people call me a social democrat. I would say democratic socialist is a fair assessment, but I would say the fundamental cornerstone of my philosophy and foreign policy is internationalism, anti-colonialism, and anti-imperialist. I think those are the cornerstones of any good foreign policy advisor's resume. That's better.
Reservoir. I mean, they're almost the same thing. All right. So, I feel like I've always been acutely interested in politics, even while I was much younger, but Bernie Sanders' 2016 primary campaign really fanned the flame that's developed into what it is today, and I feel like I feel like a lot of people my age can relate to that, and you're even younger than I am. What got you so interested in politics, and who are some of your inspirations?
So, I would say that I went to school somewhere where basically the whole day you're on your computer. And after I cheated on all my tests and quizzes because I could just Google everything because dumbos, I would just go into YouTube and look up stuff. And eventually I stumbled on a guy. You might know him. He's a small time creator. His name's Kyle Kalinske.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a new up and coming guy.
Okay.
But, yeah. Kyle Kalinske, Michael Brooks, those types of people, they helped bring me to the left. Thankfully, the skeptic community did not sink their dirty paws into me too deep. And I was able to develop my leftist beliefs. And as I got older, I kind of realized that being a scuba diver or joining the military, which were really all I thought about at the time. I know it's very different, those two career paths, but
It depends.
Scuba diving for the military. Hey, a Navy SEAL. But ironically, I actually wanted to be a military general, which is really ironic considering how my philosophy continued to develop. But as I continued to learn more and more and more, and basically high school became a time of political development. I studied international relations at the University of Maryland. I studied government and different things like that. And eventually, my mother passed away, and that had and it was by unnatural causes. It
Mm.
was due to drug addiction and homelessness and a bunch of other things. And the last thing she gave to me before she died was a Bernie Sanders pin, because he was the first person who gave her a real hope for the future, a real actually belief in political change and political activism. And so that set me on the path that I'm on right now, because I felt like I'm not a very religious man, but I felt like that was a godsend of like what I should do with the rest of
Mm.
my life.
Well, first of all, sorry to hear that. But I think it's really incredible that a parent of yours, specifically given how a lot of people's parents' political opinions differ from their own, that she would actually be a Bernie Sanders supporter and then pass that on to you. I think that's a pretty good legacy, I think, to pass
I,
down.
I would say so. It also sucked that that was the last thing she gave me, but the last conversation I had with her was when Trump got elected and how scared she was going to lose her health insurance. So
Hmm.
both of those experiences had a very deep effect on me and set me on this path.
We can only hope to do as much as possible to make it so that nobody has to deal with this again. But to move on, I think foreign policy for me is incredibly important. And going to this content creation game, I didn't really expect to focus too much on it. I definitely thought I'd be focusing more on domestic policy and elections. But now I have nearly 2 hours of content specifically dedicated to it. I mean, I just kind of stumbled into it recently, but you actually work as the youngest foreign policy advisor in U.S. history. First of all, congratulations, and second of all, why the intense focus on matters outside of the country that you live in?
Number one, who I cannot neither confirm or deny if I'm the youngest in world history. I'm still looking into that. I might actually have that, but I'm pretty sure there's like some 14-year-old kid from like ancient Mesopotamia who's gonna beat me, or something like that.
Could be.
But the jury is still out on that one. But specifically foreign policy was I studied international relations at the University of Maryland, and I did that in high school through something called the Young Terps program. So I was like 16 and I was studying international relations at a college, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little bit of an appreciation, but I saw it as more of a one piece attached to my political philosophy going forward. But then after I was able to get on the Gravel campaign, it really solidified my anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, and internationalist viewpoints, because it showed me how important it was. Gravel was a real inspiration for me. His fight to end the Vietnam War, his fight to end the military industrial complex, him putting his career on the line to read the Pentagon Papers into the public record, that inspired me. And then after all that, being basically offered the chance to make history as the youngest foreign policy advisor in history, I just took it and I was like, well, this is the path I'm going down. I'm gonna let's smash some drones and make Dick Cheney pissed.
All right. I mean, I think those are two pretty good objectives. But so you've worked as director of the Maryland Mike Gravel 2020 campaign and are now foreign policy advisor to Mckayla Wilkes' run for Maryland's 5th Congressional District.
I actually have some big news. This
Go
is
ahead.
the big announcement. So I'm breaking some news here. You got some breaking news. You're welcome. You get to relish in this as a top-notch reporter now. I can now confirm that I will be a foreign policy advisor for a second congressional candidate, meaning if I wasn't already the youngest in U.S. history, I would be the youngest now. So I would be beating the record twice.
So you're effectively dual-wielding congressional campaigns right now.
Yes. Now I cannot say who it is for or completely confirm it, because these things change at very split-second times, definitely with the type of election it is in. But I think it's the candidate I'm going for has an amazing civil rights record. Stood up against a private police force at Johns Hopkins University, and once a pro-peace pro-peace agenda. And so I was recruited by a middleman, and they saw me as the type of person to come to the fray, to come in here and continue to strive for anti-imperialism. So I can't announce who it is yet. I have yet to put out a public statement, but I wanted to give you that piece of breaking news, just as a gift to a young conure.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Congratulations, by the way. So breaking news only found on the Conure Report, everybody. This is why you come here. But to carry on, so you've done all this work, and apparently now you're doing even more. So give us sort of the timeline from your early years, just getting interested in politics, to how you got to the position you find yourself in today. I don't know if there's like any kind of like direct line you can draw.
So my younger years, my years of Gmod and Cheetos. Yeah, there's not much there. It was just video games, a lot of Kingdom Hearts, and just I think a lot of it has to do with me growing up young. I had to go through a lot of family struggles with my father being disabled and living in poverty, and my mother with her drug addiction and stuff like that, and being taken by my grandparents and going through all that. Like that deeply affected my political views at a young age. While then I didn't really realize why it was going on. I would later learn about the drug war and certain politicians who perpetuate it and treat it like a criminal issue instead of a health issue, and that would develop me and bring me to the left. I mean, I'm not gonna look at my mother's drug addiction and be like, you know what have really fixed her? Throwing her in prison again.
Bootstraps. Yeah,
exactly. You know what? If she just put down the needle and just tried to put on some bootstraps, even though with how skinny she got, they wouldn't be able to wear them. Yeah, it's just not a philosophy that can really be born with the consequences, the situation I was living in, unless I wanted to go super far right. So that kind of made me left wing without me really knowing it. And then as I further developed and learned, it was in an environment, luckily at College Park Academy, which is a public charter school, which allowed me to go online and learn more and more, and I was able to develop this leftist philosophy instead of like just becoming like another standard like Democrat, just like with Hillary Clinton pom-poms just cheering on imperialism.
Yeah, but all right. So to follow up on that, do you have any goals in mind for your future in the political scene, be it working for other elected representatives, which we just found out is the case, political organizations, or even running for office yourself? What does future Dylan Burns have in store for us?
Well, as previously reported, I was actually planning to run for city council this time, but I was prevented due to my young age. Now, 18-year-olds are allowed to run for office, but you have to be registered 1 year before election day, so they would have wanted me registered at 17. So I didn't really think this through too much.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, so what I did was basically I gathered up a bunch of people from across the state. My good friend Jake Burdett, who's currently being basically cooped out of his position on a Democratic Central Committee because he was critical of the party, so I'm supporting him in this fight right now. But I got a bunch of people from across the state. We rushed the city council, and we basically made our case and basically got every single person to promise on camera that they're going to change the city charter. So I will be running next election in 2 years for city council. I plan to continue to work in foreign policy and advocate against Turkish ethnic cleansing of Rojava. I plan to continue to develop my local chops. So eventually, hopefully one day, I'll be able to be a Maryland state delegate. And hopefully my end goal one day is to be in Congress. I want to be a congressman.
All right, Congressman Dylan Burns. I'm going to be seeing it one day. Maybe we'll get an interview at that point too.
I was seeing with the way things are going at the moment, I'll see if I can like. It might be a little late in only 3 months and not 2. I'll see. We'll see how it goes.
See if we can pencil me in.
Yeah, I'll pencil you in, man. I'll pencil you into the meeting, and I'll have you thrown out and accuse you of espionage.
But yeah, so you touched on this a little bit, but how do you usually respond to people who say that you're too young to be as involved in politics as you are?
Well, usually I just send them to Wait, let me back that up a little. I send them to the gulag. Wait, no, that's not a good response. Okay, no, but what I actually do, is I call them a boomer. No, okay, look, let me get serious.
Wait, don't say the B word. That is a slur now, apparently.
Is boomer a slur?
Apparently
okay,
so.
Boomer?
Be very careful with that one.
I'm canceled. But no. What I usually do is I talk to them about the issues that they care about. I'll talk about public safety issues, how we're having a lot of cars in our local community that we get rifled through now by bandits in the night, honestly. talk about public financing of elections and how it's impossible for working people to really run a campaign in our city council. I'll talk about how people have lost their daughters and sons overseas to endless wars of imperialism that nobody's been able to gain anything out of except for giant companies like BP. Um, and when I really talk to them about these issues and show that I do have an understanding and I come from the same struggle that they came from, they really start to appreciate the type of work I'm trying to do for them and the type of work I want to bring to our local government and to eventually the national stage with my foreign policy agenda. And I think I kind of while there is doubt because of my age, I think I'm able to wash it away with the amount of experience and knowledge I've developed, which I think really at this moment from everybody I'd be running against in the city council race completely outclasses anybody on stage, really.
Oh, for sure. It seems like a couple Google searches will put you above a lot of centrist-y Democrats out there and establishment folks.
Yeah, most definitely.
It seems like it. So recently, you got an article published in the Diamondback newspaper about the subpar infrastructure in Maryland's College Park Academy. I'm going to show some of those images from your tweet thread on screen right now, but give us a breakdown of the overall situation and the activism you and others have engaged in to try to get these issues fixed.
Okay, so like I said earlier, I went to a place called College Park Academy. Cool place. It helped me develop my ideology. It helped me develop my politics because of my ability to work when I was not like doing schoolwork. I was able to Google stuff. But we used to rent out a church for our school, so we just like learn school stuff in a church because we didn't have a building. And so eventually we got a new school building built by a contract company called St. John's. Problem is they don't care too much about the actual like safety of students. What they cared about was being able to convert it in case the school failed into an office building. Neoliberalism at its finest, guys. So if you lean on the walls too hard, the walls cave in. If you bump into the walls, they cave in. I know of an instance where somebody's head went through the walls. It was just a really bad situation. And so eventually we rallied. I ran a campaign actually just going against the walls, and I won in a landslide. And after that, like nothing was really changed because it was, student government. What can I do from there? So after that, I just started getting petition signatures, and I got over 400 students, staff, and faculty, and student government people to sign this petition saying that they felt unsafe at our school. And what we found through research and everything, that the school walls were not high impact. They were of poor quality. The sinks were corner cut, and we have direct admission from people from the Children's Guild saying that they were corner cutting and that these sinks were made of poor quality and they were just waiting for them to fall off so they could replace them. And we took all this to state senators, state delegates, and to everybody, and they would all just kick it down the road. And eventually, well, what's the solution they propose? Conure, what would you do if somebody brought this to you? Well, I know what you would do, Conure. You would say draw on the walls, and that'll fix the problem. Because that's exactly what they told us. They said they were going to make the walls look so pretty that no one would want to break them.
Yeah, give the kids some crayons, make sure the kids hear words, put on the record player.
Look, if a school shooting happens, you should have the safety of knowledge of knowing that they won't shoot through the walls or hurt you because Bart Simpson's face is right there, and that's their favorite Simpson character. It was ridiculous. Kids were coming to me concerned about school shootings, concerned about school safeties, concerned about all these things. And I was bringing these to the state senators, and they kind of like the state senators and delegates kicking it down the line. And eventually I got fed up. I got fed up with the bureaucracy, so I said, you know what? I've been working on this for 2 years now. I'm bringing it to the papers. I'm bringing it to the news. Maryland Matters never got back to me. Baltimore Sun never got back to me. The Diamondback, they at first didn't really get back to me until I nagged so much until they looked at it. And then they were really like shocked by what they saw. They didn't expect this. Because there were instances that, one of the most horrendous instances, our governor's name is Larry Hogan. Real bad Republican type. He's a Republican in a blue state, so he's what you're supposed to consider the moderate Republican. Well, he's been basically bragging about public and private partnerships. That's when the public sector partners with the private sector to like build stuff. And our school is an example of his lovely plan. Anyway, what happened was he came to our school and we had holes in the wall. So what did they do? What was their grand solution? They put posters over the holes in the wall. And that was the solution. They just put posters over the. It's literally cartoon stuff or like in a prison cell when there's a giant hole and just put like a poster of a naked lady. Like it was ridiculous. The type of like short-term solutions and cover-up that came about here. So I showed all this to them. They went around. They interviewed people. Wallace Lowe, who's the president of the University of Maryland, who's connected to the school very deeply. The University of Maryland is. He basically said, I can tell you from being personally told that people have told me that when he asked him about it, what was told is, oh, one student complained about it. But that one student had over 400 signatures.
Yeah, one student and then 7,000 people behind him, yeah.
Exactly. So imagine if an ambassador came to America, the ambassador of Hungary, and said, our people are starving, we need help, a famine has come across our land, and then Trump went to America later. Yeah, one Hungarian guy came and complained. He was just one guy. Like, he represents so much more because of the nation he's representing. I was representing these students in that instance. It was kind of blown off. And he said the school was designed this way. It was designed to be able to be converted. It was designed to have thin walls to make it impossible for us to have a music program during school hours, meaning lower income students could not participate in our music classes and music and like making bands or whatever, because you would have to pay for the after school activities. So this was something that hurt lower income students. This was something that put student safety at risk. And so I decided I was going to take a wrecking ball to the idyllic image of what the school was going on. And some people weren't too happy about that, but I didn't care. I persevered, and after 3 years of work, we got this article published. And I can tell you from some conversations I have today, some wheels are already turning.
All right. Well, hopefully, we'll have you on the program again. Hopefully by then, all of this will be resolved. I'm not necessarily going to hold my breath because I know how these people can be, especially when there's money involved, but we can hope. I'll be here supporting you as well, and I would hope everybody in the audience is as well.
Yeah, well, now that I can go to the school board and say Conure from Conure on Twitch supports my efforts, they're gonna go into shock. They're gonna faint. They're really gonna scramble, Conure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. It's what I'm here for, really. I mean, to get someone like you, a bit of a small fry compared to the millions of people that watch me, I mean, I penciled you in, and this has been pretty good so far, so I'm happy you're here. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so
maybe one day Trihex will be able to have a collab with you, if you're so gracious.
Maybe. But before we get into all of the foreign policy topics, I just wanted to briefly go over your thoughts on the 2019 Democratic primary. So you did work for Mike Gravel. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm probably going to keep saying it because it's pretty cool. But specifically, you were the director of his Maryland campaign. Give us some insight onto what that was like, what your job entailed, and what you learned from the experience.
Well, I tried to run the Maryland campaign different from a lot of the other campaigns. Most of the other campaigns, the national campaign was kind of tinkering with some ideas of on the ground work. I knew that on the ground work wouldn't be effective unless it's extremely targeted. Canvassing isn't going to work for Mike Gravel because explaining like the concept of, well, he doesn't want to be president, but he wants to go up there and really dab on the like, how are you going to explain that to some like 50-year-old woman whose main concern is healthcare? Like, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
You're not going to be able to explain that to the person whose main concern is climate change or anything. Like, it's just not going to work. So what I did was I went and represented the Mike Gravel campaign in Maryland at different events, like at healthcare events where we maybe slightly heckled Steny Hoyer a little bit and asked him about his record on Yemen and healthcare.
No heckling is enough for Steny Hoyer. Go on.
Steny Hoyer is a gracious leader, and we're all blessed to be in his presence. And then we did a targeted ad campaign about our great governor, Larry Hogan. And from what I told you earlier, I know you're already in love with the man. He's just so wonderful.
It looks like it.
I mean, supporting mandatory minimum sentencing so he can take more fathers away from their kids. Who isn't like excited for that? Taking thousands of dollars from the toll road industry and then magically being in favor of giant toll roads and fudging transit options, destroying transit initiatives in Baltimore. Oh my God, what a lovely moderate. Anyway, so we brought this agenda and the things that he did into the forefront because people generally thought he was like the moderate Republican, but he isn't. He is far right like the rest of them. and we showed this. We did an ad campaign, talked about it, talked about how he even developed a foreign policy in the state when he made it so countries that supported boycott of Israel would not get public contracts, which now gives Maryland a foreign policy, which we don't need since we're a state. It was ridiculous. So we brought that to the forefront. We made some great media. We made some videos that the national campaign published, and of course we talked about how war and empire is affecting local Marylanders. So I think the way we ran our campaign and connecting it to local issues was great. Another good 2 examples would be, one, we attacked the private police force that was being developed at Johns Hopkins. It's a horrible idea to think that a private corporation should be allowed to be in charge of cops in this day and age or ever. And
Just
the second
mercenaries, really.
Oh yeah, I mean honestly, just let's just occupy the city. And but don't worry, they won't be able to leave the campus unless unless they're in pursuance of somebody, or if it's touching, or if buildings are touching us. But it's all good because it's just the outer wall. The thing is, Johns Hopkins is the biggest employer in the state. Your campus touches basically like half the city. Are you kidding me? It was ridiculous. And then we also worked very hard to save a local co-op. So we did a lot of really good work on the campaign. I got to give a shout out to Jake Burdett. I got to give a shout out to my entire staff, my editing boys, my main media people. It was just amazing campaign.
It definitely sounds like it, for sure.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time as state director, and I wasn't even originally state director. I was deputy state director, and then I did some politics, and I became state director, and then I became deputy regional director, which means I helped manage 1/3 of the country. So that was basically the entirety of my stay at the Mike Gravel campaign.
All right, so all of that superfluous information aside, I think we get to the real important questions here. What does Mike Gravel smell like? I'm just kidding. Mike Gravel was
Cranberries.
actually... Cranberries, okay. So Mike Gravel was actually excluded from the second Democratic debate, even though he qualified. What was your reaction to that, and what went on within the campaign while they worked to overtime to right that wrong then?
So when we talked about taking DC, it was I'm kidding. No, what we did basically is we looked at the situation and we talked to, of course, we talked to the DNC and we talked to them about how we were not included in all the polls and how that isn't really fair. And the response was, well, we're sorry. Well, we'll still tell people that you qualified, which means nothing. So, I mean, there wasn't really much we could do. We made the requirement. We had more support, really, than a lot of the people that are going to go up there. To say, I mean, look at people like Steyer, who literally just bought it. And we did it from, a bunch of teens, making memes in their basement. and you're going to tell me that he deserves to be up there instead of us? When we hit 67,000 donors, we exceeded the actual requirement. It was just the polling requirement, which we weren't included in, a ton of the polls, and the polls that we were ahead in were not certified by the DNC. So it was just they didn't want us to be up there, and if they don't want us to be up there, we're not getting up there.
At least, I think John Delaney and all the Delanyiacs behind him, at least he was able to carry the torch a little bit, I think, for Mike Gravel.
John Delaney was probably one of the best anti-war activists in the game, honestly. The way he, when he went up and ended the Iraq war single-handedly, got all of our troops out of Afghanistan, ended imperialism. I heard recently he was protesting in Honduras. Actually, I think he actually
really.
Yeah, you know that. I think in 2009 he single-handedly stopped Hillary Clinton from. Wait a second. I think I might have been misattributing a few of his accomplishments. You try to figure out which ones were fake.
But I have seen pictures of him working out online, so I mean that has to account for something.
God. I mean, look, he's the Gaston of politics.
When is Mike Gravel going to release a workout tape? That's what I want to know. That's probably his biggest blunder of 2019.
The thing is, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, Delaney, all their workout tapes. Honestly, I think if he just released one yoga video, I think we would have probably made the polling requirement.
Maybe a guided meditation.
Yeah. I think maybe if he did some MMA.
Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, I think specifically Muay Thai.
There was that one fight that went on where apparently this Bernie supporter, he wrote
I
on
watched it
Instagram.
live, man. I love
Yeah.
combat sports. I fought in the Golden Gloves. Oh, dude. Oh my God, I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Apparently, he wrote Bernie Sanders, you bastards, in this photo of him, in the final, right as he knocked the guy out. It says, Bernie Sanders, you bastards. And apparently this guy on the ground here is a Trump supporter. So, I mean, if this isn't telling of what would occur if Bernie Sanders was elected, I don't know what it is. But anyway.
That ref is the Electoral College. Oof. Yeah, it was oh God, it was a grand moment, man, watching that live. I mean, there was another moment in boxing where there was this dude who had like shorts that was like made of the wall, and it said like build the wall on it, and like Trump 2020 on the back. He got his ass whooped by a Mexican fighter. It was the best thing ever.
But yeah, so to follow up on the previous Mike Gravel question, eventually he withdrew his candidacy and immediately endorsed Bernie Sanders. Now, I'm not going to make any assumptions here. Who do you currently support amongst the current Democratic candidates for president?
I mean Bernie Sanders.
Wait,
yeah,
are you? What you mean you're not supporting Joe Biden? Maybe Amy Klobuchar? Like, you're obviously not watching enough Bill Maher.
Look, I mean, Bill Maher's assessment of Amy Klobuchar was real political mastery, honestly. Is like one of the best analyzing Muhammad Ali in action. But no. Yeah. Bernie Sanders, to me, if you're into foreign policy, is really the only candidate you can consider. The rest of them don't have the foreign policy chops. They don't have the history. They don't have the current agenda when it comes to the situation in Israel, or really any of the situations on the ground around the world. Bernie's history of internationalism it really helps him here. I mean, I would really say he is the best if you're concentrated on foreign policy. And domestic issues as well. I mean, I agree with his domestic platform. I mean, like, the only thing I would add to it, of course, would be the development of sex worker rights.
For sure. I would hope that he would come out eventually and just say it. Sex work is real work.
That's the thing. Hey, Mike Gravel, this is one of the big things we push. We actually got a lot of support from the sex worker community, which is really cool to see, like, them actually show that they have real political power as an industry.
But just to go more into that, so aside from Bernie Sanders being one of few candidates for president that actually has a Twitch account and streams from there on occasion, why do you support Bernie for president? And are there any specific policies you look for when making this decision, like, in general?
I mean, Medicare for all. I mean, it's my end game for healthcare. I mean, of course, Mike Gravel actually supported VA for all. He actually supported something that would go a little further. But yeah, Medicare for all. His criminal justice plan is the best of anything in the game. His cancellation of student debt, major, would be huge. Would be really reinvigorating to the economy, allow everybody to have some consumer spending power. I mean, public housing plan, really good. No one deserves to be homeless. I know that better than anybody. When it comes in his foreign policy, which, I mean, when it definitely comes to the issue of the Gaza Strip, Israel's war crimes, and conditioning aid to Israel, I think that's the furthest any American politician has really gone who's this close to actual power on this. And for it to be a Jewish president, about to be a Jewish president, I think is really symbolic too of just how the left has really shifted and how he has individually shifted the conversation. But the biggest thing for me when it comes to his effectiveness is, a lot of people say, and I've heard this a lot from, like, people behind closed doors, is, well, in the Senate he wasn't effective in getting individual bills passed. The difference is his bills were always like kind of like a thing to move the needle leftward, and his amendments were the thing to get stuff on the ground, like his amendments to the Affordable Care Act. He would be an activist president. He would have people on the ground. He would have constant pressure. And that's what we need if you want to get, like, a good leftist agenda passed. If you want to get a real left-wing agenda passed in this country, you're going to have activist pressure on the ground. The Republicans have that in the form of the Tea Party. They have that sometimes in physical force in the form of, like, militias. I mean, that's violent and that's scary, but we do need, like, activists on the ground. We do need that pressure on the ground. to counter like their like really scary type pressure, whether it be in the form of they're just Tea Party activists dressing up as a like the founding fathers and like skipping through the neighborhood yelling quotes from the Constitution, or they're scary militias that go to marches and intimidate people.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of what Bernie gets at when he says he wants to be the organizer in chief. It makes a lot of sense that you would want to try to mobilize as many people as possible to try to get your agenda passed, an agenda that, by no small margin, will help millions of people throughout the country and perhaps around the world. It's quite ridiculous that that's not just, like, talked about more in mainstream media, how he's actually able to drive people like you and me to actually, do things and try to affect change in the world, where I don't know if many other candidates can say the same thing.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they can't really say the same thing I mean, but this Bernie is not just a singular, like, amazing example. He's amazing, he's wonderful. But if you look around the world, people like Jeremy Corbyn and Lula, it's amazing. It's amazing, this kind of, because first it was this regressive right-wing fascist backlash to migration, to economic disparity, income inequality. It was out of emotion, it was out of fear, but in response, the world has rejected their principles. In Chile, you can see this in the protests there. In Haiti, you can see it in protests. In Iraq, you can see it in protests. In Hong Kong, you can see it in protests. When it comes to Jeremy Corbyn being one of the most effective opposition leaders in the UK, you can see it. When it comes to Lula's continued popularity in prison, you can see it. In prison. And everybody asking for him to be free throughout the whole world. And then you get to Bernie Sanders being the most well-liked politician in America, and he is an admitted democratic socialist. It shows that left-wing ideas are popular and we can win, and we don't need to have this doomer mentality about our future. It really shows that we do have a path forward, but we just need to keep fighting and not get discouraged.
100%. So, real quick question. Have you watched any of the Democratic debates? Like, I understand that the following question is going to be kind of hard, considering how much of a clown fiesta they've been with
I've
useless...
watched them all.
Yeah,
I've watched them all, and I've rotted on the inside.
There's, like, useless candidates like John Delaney, Amy Klobuchar, just taking up airtime. But have there been any moments that particularly stood out to you?
I would say, like, Biden's interactions with people is so perplexing. I would say the ones that the most perplexing to me was his interaction with Elizabeth Warren at the last debate, where she was talking about her work on the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau and all that. Consumer Protection Agency, was it? Or which messing up terms.
Oh, shoot. I would have to...
Either, whatever. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. And he's just like, thank you, you did a good job. I helped you. And he's wagging his finger, and it's just like, and she's just like, thank you. And just the complete lack of like social awareness as he talks to people is just baffling to me. The other thing that really notes is how like the Tim Ryan moment about I wrote the damn bill. I want to get like a tattoo, man. Like, that was so good.
That is very good. That's why he keeps bringing it up in every single debate following. And I mean, the applause trickles off, but I mean, it still gets him. It still gets the audience going.
I mean, like, Tim Ryan, I remember I was watching the first debate with my grandmother, and the first thing Tim Ryan talked about was his experience in Ohio with unions and the decay of industry. My grandmother said, I actually kind of like this guy. He's saying some cool stuff, because like the reason we live in Maryland currently is because they moved from Ohio after Ronald Reagan decided, let's get the Chinese steel. Wait a second. Do we need to like do something for these work? Nah. And then everything decayed. But as he just went on past that point, it was just fumble after fumble. Watching these people who, if you go in at 1% popularity, like across the country, like 1% polling, you better like in your soul think, I have the perfect thing that's gonna skyrocket me to the top. From me being able to overtake Bernie, Hillary Clinton, Warren, all of them, Biden as well. I've got the perfect personality. And then you go up there and fumble and look like Tim Ryan. And then you somehow thought you were going to be able to overtake all those people against the odd with less money, less popularity, less all of it. What the hell was that? What kind of like what do you think you're doing with? It's such a mess. And coming from like a perspective where I do like endless planning about a single run for city council, and seeing this guy just face plant over and over on the national stage. Oh my, I just, oh God, I was dying inside.
It's really not the best, I don't think. I don't think you like to see that too much. But so to kind of piggyback off that, I know there's a heated debate in the online space on this. So how do you feel about Bernie Sanders versus Elizabeth Warren? I know some people are okay with either. Some people think Warren isn't far left enough. Some people think Bernie is too far left. What's your take?
So, I would say that the recent release of like her plan to pay for Medicare for all, I think it's while there is problems with the taxes, the head tax and all that, it does show that she is at least officially like saying that I am in favor of Medicare for all. Will she diet down later? Probably she will. But I would say that as a second choice, I mean, yeah, I'd vote Warren. I mean, if Bernie drops out, and if he did drop out and had to endorse Warren later in the race, if the numbers just weren't there, I would say that would be the one of the best paths forward, because I just, but I still have so many concerns about Warren when it comes to foreign policy,
For sure.
and when it comes to certain domestic issues.
But when it comes down
Mostly
to it,
foreign policy.
you would still vote for her if it was her versus Trump, of course, right?
I mean, I'd vote for any Democrat over Trump.
True.
But I mean, right now is the primary. And what
Exactly.
people need to realize is that the primary is when you get a little vicious, is you get a little in the mud, and you toughen some person up. And if your candidate is too weak to handle a primary, and you're scared about being under fire in a primary, then you're too weak and you're too impossible to, and you can't win a general after that. Then that's your candidate's fault. That's not the fault of the primary.
And even if you win that general, you have to be able to mobilize people to actually elect representatives, rather, that will actually get your agenda passed. And we've seen how that kind of shakes out in previous elections. But I definitely feel like foreign policy is one of Elizabeth Warren's weaker sides, like you mentioned, and the debates in general haven't had too much of a focus on foreign policy. If you were a moderator for one of these debates, what kinds of questions would you ask, foreign policy or otherwise?
I think I think the first question I would ask, this would be very important to me, is I would ask about Kashmir. The kind of lack of attention on Kashmir as all these other situations developed is really frightening. I would ask about Rojava, of course, is very important to me. And I would ask about the protests in Chile, because that would get a very interesting response. I could ask about Hong Kong, and I could hear like, I support. No one's gonna be like, you know what? I'm going tanky. Like, I'm not gonna see like Tulsi Gabbard. Like, even though Tulsi Gabbard has been doing some weird takes recently, I don't think he'd go all full tanky. I would say the protests in Chile, and specifically protests in Chile, because some of the people up there would have to take the side of the Chilean protesters. You would be taking the side of the protesters against the ideology you are personally pushing of neoliberalism, the ideology that developed in Chile. So what I would probably prompt that question to someone like Pete Buttigieg, whose foreign policy agenda, I think that would be a really, really tough question for him. I think he would probably end up saying something like, I support I support the protesters and their right to protest. But then following up with a lot of the agenda that the person in power supports is a lot of the same stuff that you support. A lot of and you're just going into that deeper. I think that would be a really interesting line of questioning.
And okay, so that will be that for the Democratic primary subject. But before we get into the next segment, which will be on Latin America, and then following that, Syria.
Wait, can I clear something up, because I'm getting a lot of DMs about this.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't like Tulsi. I'm sorry. Tulsi's not her coziness to Modi, her comments on Kashmir, her commentary on the last debate when the stuff of the Kurds came up. And I mean, I get that her whole thing is about anti-imperialism, but that was a moment we had to stand with the Kurds. And I know she released a statement in favor of it, but that was a moment we were supposed to talk about the Kurds. I have real substantial problems with those. Her backing up a Medicare for all.
Yeah, I feel like she's really just kind of just fumbling the ball on her candidacy. I mean, I didn't expect that she would do too well given the other names on the board, but I felt like she might have been trying to like maybe angle for a cabinet position in one of these people's cabinets, but it's not looking good lately.
I am honestly surprised she lasted longer than Beto. I really am.
Really?
I really am. I mean, Beto technically was polling higher than Tulsi. Beto had more money. Beto had more establishment support. I thought he'd last a little longer, even if just to try to like keep his name in the conversation, because he basically murdered his chances in Texas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Another problem with Tulsi is that she's against kind of like American interventionism, but like when another country does like imperialism, it's like she doesn't really comment or doesn't really care. Like when Russia bombs people in Syria, then like she's like a lot of times I've even seen her be supportive of Russians bombing of certain areas in Syria. So I mean, I feel like it's just I think her foreign policy ideology is I support the troops. Then yes, okay, yeah, but what about the civilians? Like I love the troops too, but what about the civilians there? Well, I do want to continue the war on terror, and I still want to use drones, which a lot of her supporters won't admit that she wants to continue the war on terror. She wants to continue the use of drones. She's no Mike Gravel. If you were a big foreign policy boy, Mike Gravel was your guy. Then you moved to Bernie.
Yeah.
Step 1, step 2.
Okay, so with that, before we get into the next segment, which is going to be on Latin America, just very briefly, and after that it'll be Syria and then Hong Kong, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break. I'm going to put up the Be Right Back screen, run some ads, get some water. I encourage everybody to do the same. Get up, stretch your legs, do what you got to do. Don't forget to follow Dylan on Twitter, at DylanBurns1776. It's in chat right now. Posted about a lot of activism. Very good guy. Very good. And then follow my Twitch channel if you like what you see. I do the Conure Report pretty frequently. Otherwise, I'm just doing very chill streams. You can come hang out, chat. Subscribe to my YouTube. It'll be in the chat as well. This is where these will be going. If you can't be here for the whole thing, it'll be uploaded on YouTube in different segments later on. And yeah, anything to say before we go to break, Dylan?
Please follow my Twitter. I am 9 followers away from 1. That'd be dope. That'd be dope as hell.
You're 9 followers away from what? You cut out.
1,000
From
followers.
1,000. X from Y, everybody. Follow that Twitter account. Thank you. All right, we'll be right back. Thanks so much for watching this segment from episode 3 of the Conure Report. This episode's Conure call-out is Pope Jupiter. Appreciate the support. Hope you enjoyed the tier 1 sub to my Twitch channel. If you'd like to be the next Conure call-out, follow my Twitter at ConureCC and retweet my video links when they go live. To the right of me is the link to subscribe to the channel, and to the right of that is even more content for you to consume. Love y'all very much. I think that was the one.